This video is brought to you by my latest book, How to Play Melodic Rock Lead Guitar, a comprehensive guide to doing exactly that, playing melodic rock lead guitar. This is not just some collection of scale patterns and tabs, although you do get plenty of those, but you also get an entire chapter on how to come up with your own licks, as well as video content, tutorials and demonstrations, loads of jam tracks, and all the way through I'm encouraging you to expand your fretboard knowledge and showing you how you can think in a more musical and melodic way. Check out the link in the description for more details. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. There's nothing quite like a good old bit of meat and potatoes, pentatonic and power chord classic rock to get the blood pumping, isn't it? And that's exactly what I was doing there, but there is a potential pitfall if you don't tread carefully when you're playing over riffs or power chords. And that's what I'm here to tell you about today. It's very easy to get it wrong and end up sounding embarrassingly out of key. So let's cut straight to it and let me tell you what the problem is and how to avoid it.
Here is the explanation.
Right then, so what exactly is this potential problem when playing over power chords? Well, the first thing we need to do is look at what a power chord is. It's not a major chord, and it's not a minor chord. If you look at those two chords, E major and E minor, you will see that there is only one note which is changing. Okay? It's called the major or minor third. The major third in a major chord and the minor third in a minor chord. And I guess the origins of this kind of thing date back to when guitar players first started using overdriven or distorted sounds. I'm thinking of like when Dave Davies of the Kinks, for example, slashed his speaker cone to get like a distorted sound. What was it? You Really Got Me, wasn't it? You know, and other methods of distorting the guitar tone. Just, I guess, a lot of bands in the 60s went from playing coffee shops and that kind of venue with low wattage amps, and then before long they were playing theatres and they had to turn those probably 15 watt amps up loud for the size of the venue, and they noticed that it was starting to distort in a rather pleasing way. The problem is when you play especially a minor chord with a distorted sound, it starts to sound a bit dissonant and flabby and not altogether pleasant, like this. You can hear some of the notes there are just starting to rub together in a not entirely pleasant way. So it was basically discovered that, well, if you just miss out that note which makes the difference between it being a major and a minor chord, you get a much punchier, more focused, tight sound. Like that, or that. So the chord sequence that that little solo was played over earlier has the chords of an E5 power chord. We call them 5 chords because chords are made up of the first, third and fifth notes of a scale, and as we've already established, it's the third note which makes the difference between it being major and minor. So it's just the first and fifth note of the scale, so we call them 5 chords. It had an E5 chord, a C5 chord, a D5 chord, then back to the E5, then we go back to the C5 down to an A5, and then to a B5, and then the whole circus begins again on the E5. Okay, so it's very clearly, if I just play through that little sequence, centered around, it's got a tonality, as we say, of that E5 chord, like this. You can hear it settles nicely, it sounds resolved on that E5 chord. So how do we know what scale to play over the top of it? Because it's not an E major chord, and it's not an E minor chord. The chord which is giving the accompaniment, the backing track, if you like, its defining character, can't be defined as being either major or minor. So does that mean you can play both over it and get away with both? Well, in some circumstances you can get away with playing a minor pentatonic where a major one would strictly fit, and that's essentially the essence of what blues does. But try doing it the other way around. Try playing a major pentatonic over somewhere that is more minor in character, and it will just sound dissonant and horrible and nasty and wrong in many, many ways. So what we need to do is discover whether or not this chord sequence, remember, and is that, and resolving back to the E, is that E major or E minor in character? If you've got a pretty good ear, you can probably determine which one it is, but I know of at least one of my students who tried that route and got it wrong, and it sounded horrible. I'm not going to name names, but you know who you are, and it sounded horrible, so that became the focus of his next lesson. What you got to do is go back to first principles and look at the difference between an E major chord and an E minor chord. The E major chord, the major third in that chord is this note here, G sharp, and the E minor chord, the minor third in that chord is G. So what we need to do is take a look at those power chords and see which one of those two notes exists somewhere bubbling away under the surface of the chord sequence. So we know that the E power chord, the E5, doesn't have a G or a G sharp in it. That's what makes it a power chord. The D, well, that's just a D note and an A note, another D there. But it's when we get to the C power chord. The notes in a C power chord are C, G, and another C again. So because of the presence of that solitary G note in that C power chord, that defines the whole chord sequence as sounding minor. Okay? Even though this chord is neither an E major nor an E minor, it's an E power chord, the presence of the G note in that chord, as you can hear, is what defines an E as an E, defines the E minor as an E minor. So that's what you need to do. You need to have a little bit of a dig through the notes in your chord sequence. You know, sometimes it'll be easy, sometimes the root note of one of the chords will give you the major or minor third of the overall tonality, the G or the G sharp in this case. But in this case here, you know, it's the, you've got to know that a C power chord contains a G note. So there is yet another, I think, fantastic example of how knowing a little bit of theory can prevent you from standing up on a stage and launching into a solo that is in entirely the wrong key and making you, wish that the ground would open up and swallow you up. So there you go. That's how to tell whether or not the power chord sequence that you're playing over, or the riffy kind of sequence that you're playing over, is in a major or a minor key, and you can choose your pentatonic shenanigans accordingly. Now you know what to do. Go away and have some fun with it. So that's why I was using E minor pentatonic in that solo at the top of the video. Of course, there is, as always, a full tab for that solo in both Guitar Pro and PDF formats, along with a clip of me playing it. That explanation you've just seen there, and an extended version of the jam track that I was using. All of that is up on my Patreon page. There's the address, link in the description, as I'm sure you know by now. It's $3 or about £3 a month, and you get access to all of these additional goodies that go along with these YouTube videos. And of course, a massive thank you to everyone who supports me in that, or any of the other ways, all of which are downstairs in the description. And that is pretty much all I've got for you today, folks. Hope you found the video useful and informative, and maybe even a little bit entertaining. And if that's the case, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so. Why not drop me a like as well while you're at it? And of course, don't forget the live stream every Friday, 5 PM UK time. It's just a good chance for a beer and a chat on a Friday, really. It's a great way to kick off the weekend, and I'd love to see you there if you can make it. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.